My scientific philosophy. I want to first start off by acknowledging that I am on Treaty 6 land. This is important to me because I am a treaty person who appreciates and shares the land. How do you understand science as a particular way of knowing? Well, prior to university, I knew science as a class that was very complex. I viewed and understood science as a subject that consisted of biology, chemistry, physics, and much more. All throughout my schooling, science was a difficult class or subject for me. Leroy Littlebear mentions this further in his video, Blackfoot Metaphysics. He challenges traditional science by stating that traditional science's approach to knowledge is not exploratory. And this was very evident throughout my schooling. My classes consisted of my teacher teaching at the front of the room, telling us to copy the notes on the board, and really it just was not very interactive or hands-on whatsoever. My schooling definitely revolved around the Western way of teaching and knowing. And unfortunately, prior to university, I could admit that my teaching philosophy would have revolved around the same idea. However, this class has changed and shifted my scientific philosophy. I've learned how important it is to allow science to be much more student-centered. Giving students the chance to focus on their scientific interests, questions, and wonders allows students to be much more engaged and interactive in their learning. I want to move away from the Western way of knowing because I believe students should learn and be exposed to various ways of knowing. One example that I would want to incorporate into my scientific philosophy is Indigenous ways of knowing, because it is part of Canada's history and land. And connecting back to what Leroy Littlebear had said previously, I want my students to think in exploratory or deeper ways. This would offer them a better and much more knowledgeable education. So what kind of science teacher do I want to be? I believe my scientific philosophy has definitely shifted for the better throughout this semester. I've learned a variety of ways I want to better myself as a science teacher, or more just as a teacher in general, because I believe that I should not just be called a science teacher, but in general a teacher. I want to disrupt the idea of normal schooling that I grew up learning. I want to incorporate and take advantage of the outdoors and land we live on. Susan Stewart explains, including place-based education into the curriculum is a way to capture and reclaim traditional Indigenous knowledges. I think this is important because, again, it allows you to incorporate various ways of knowing throughout the classroom. Thus, taking students outside will also allow them to hopefully appreciate and admire the land they live on. Also, this would allow me to interconnect science with other subject areas such as physical education, social studies, health, and arts. This would incorporate the idea of interdisciplinary subjects because I believe that classes should not be constructed into one subject, but instead being able to connect science throughout different subjects. And through disrupting normal schooling, I believe it is important to not have structured subjects and timeframes for classes. I believe that structured timeframes disrupt students' mind flow and ability to really work through their homework. This would also allow students' learning to be much more natural and concrete. I, as a teacher, want to incorporate and support inquiry-based learning. Students deserve to have an opinion on their learning. It should also revolve around their own interests and wonders, because this would allow students to be much more engaged and interested in their own learning. Furthermore, I want my scientific philosophy to include various forms of assessment. Students don't all learn the same way, so why should they all be assessed the same way? And again, this would allow students to have a say in their education and be responsible for it. I know that my scientific philosophy will continue to expand and change, but I'm happy with the new knowledge I've gained through this class. This is just the beginning, and I can't wait to see how much more I continue to grow.